Hey, it's me, the professor, and listen to me now and hear me later. Okay. Someone said that us passport bros that are overseas don't got game and made it easy because we don't want to fight. That's almost word for word off another of my dear friend's podcast this morning, but it's not. Our motivation isn't for women. That's just a bonus. You know what I mean? That's like saying I'm moving to Germany to go buy a BMW because they're cheaper there. And the reason they're cheaper there is because they make them there. Odd, isn't it? But listen to this. My whole motivation for being overseas as opposed to being in the United States is definitely not for the women. Because for me, that's just a trash fire. I'm not interested. They don't have anything to offer me at all. And I don't care how they feel about it because they've lost their right to even be around me. We're overseas because it's cheaper to live. Okay. If you make $1,000 a month, $1,000 a month, you couldn't survive in the United States. I'm retired. Okay. And my pension only goes so far in the United States. If I was living in the United States right now, I'd be living in a fucking trailer in Texas. That's where I'd be, in a trailer. Because it's not, veterans don't exactly have the, sweeping in surpluses of cash. Okay, there's none of that. Okay, you basically, it's like living on above minimum wage. I think Walmart workers make more than veterans do. So our real motivation is not women. So the whole idea of simping for said women is ridiculous. Because look, when you live in the States, they make it hard for you to go out with them so you can get in their pants. And you know what I'm saying? So and that's the cause of why a lot of dudes lie, because they make it so hard to go out with them that dudes feel the need to lie about their status and all that stuff. You guys know what? When you go overseas, no one gives a shit about your money. No one cares about what job you got. No one cares about your possessions, what kind of car you drive. None of that stuff. What they do care about is how you treat other people. Okay, so my main motivation. Think about this. Okay, let's say you make $1,000 a week. That's 4,000 a month, which I don't even know the economy in the United States, but I know it's a lot. You can't afford to rent a place. It's under like, $1,000. Otherwise, you're living in a trailer, like I said. I would prefer to live overseas where the dollar goes 70% further than it does in the US. And in some places like Colombia or my case in Mexico, I paid $420 a month for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedroom house that has 3 bathrooms and a 2-car garage, living in a relatively decent neighborhood. That's relatively safe comparatively to other parts of Mexico, which is all you guys ever see on the news is just the shittiest parts of Juarez or Tijuana. And that's your image of Mexico, and that's your image of overseas, because when you think about Tijuana, you think about all the Porky's videos and movies and stuff like that, because it's affiliated with prostitution. Well, dudes like me, the last thing in the fucking world I want to do is spend money on a bitch. Okay, when I say bitch, I mean the translation of bitch in Spanish means prostitute. So for all you guys that think that we're down here chasing girls and prostitutes, dude, I could walk out of my house right now and talk to any woman on this street and go out on a date and they'll say yes. It doesn't mean I'm going to wife them, but look, a lot of these women down here are wife material. Up there, they're not. They're all selfish, self-centered, and egotistical, and all they think about and talk about is money. Why? Because men up there, all they do is lie and talk about money in order to create this illusion of status. And it's ironic because the rich live poor and the poor pretend to be rich in the United States. So when you come down here, you don't have to pretend. You can be your authentic self. So if you haven't been down here and you don't know what it's like overseas, to actually state something that's like, oh, you know what? I think the weather in New York sucks. I've never been to New York. I haven't been to New York since like 90 or something, 93. I don't have the rights or the knowledge to spout such ignorance because I don't know what it's like. So when you guys want to talk about passport bros, simping and spending money on chicks and all this stuff, it's ridiculous because we're not, most of us are down here for a stable life. We want to have a stable relationship with a girl that's not been run through, which makes it for a gigantic portion of the women in the US. So why the hell would I want to go up there and spend, like I said, live in a fucking trailer park, eating mayonnaise fucking sandwiches, as opposed to living here in a 6-bedroom house, 2-car garage, 3 bathroom or 4? Doesn't matter. But for 420 bucks a month, what do you get? I know I rented a teeny tiny house when I was stationed at Herbert Field because I was a little slick sleeve jitterbug with a sweet tooth, and I didn't have any money, and I had to live in a tiny space. But my rent back in the 90s was $400 a month, and that to me was a lot of money. But now, fast forward to 2023, where would 400 bucks get you? It wouldn't get you anywhere. You'd be living in somebody's garage. So the idea that we're down here simping or doing some ridiculous shit like that is it's just absurd to me. And you can't really say an opinion on it saying I don't have game. You don't need games. All right. When I lived in the States, if game requires lying to somebody, I don't want any part of that. The best thing I could tell you is that, man, I'm about to go across the street and have a pulled pork sandwich. And yes, it's 7 in the morning, but 8 in the morning, but it doesn't matter because I can have a pulled pork sandwich. It's about 300 grams of solid roasted pork that's been cooking for all night long. And then after I'm done, the lady that owns the place gives me a big bag of bones that are still hot from being cooked all night long. And she gives me a liter of bone broth. And it costs about 15 cents. All right. So how much does bone broth cost when you go to one of those GMO supermarkets that you have in the United States? Like $5 a liter. I spent 15 cents for the same shit. Only thing is, it's not GMO because GMO is not allowed down here. Okay. So that's another thing. The food was my motivation for moving to Mexico. It is not for the women. If I wanted to have hot women, I would have stayed in Colombia and I could have done whatever I wanted, had a roster if I wished to. But I'm not about that life. And so what I'm doing now is every single thing I've ever wanted to do and could do, I can now afford to do because my cost of living is so far below everybody else. Like I said, 70% cost of living comparatively to the US. So like I said, if you make $1,000 a week, instead of spending uh, you know, $1,000, you're spending 300 for the same shit. Go to the pharmacy. I'm gonna give you an example. If you go to CVS pharmacy, well, first of all, if you go to a doctor first, you're gonna have to have a doctor visit to get any medicines of any kind from any pharmacy in the U.S., which half of them want to kill you anyway. But let's just say you want to get some, cheap generic Viagra. What's it cost? You have your doctor visit first. What's that cost? 150 bucks. Then you got to go to the pharmacy. And what's it cost? It costs $20 per pill. And that's if you don't have insurance. All right. Down here, you don't even need insurance. For what dudes pay for one tablet is the cost of 3 packets of the same shit. Pfizer, Bayer, whatever, all the same stuff. But like I said, if you cut down your cost of living 70%, that would be a great motivator in getting the fuck out of the United States. So, we don't like the attitude of the women in the US. They're despicable. They're difficult to live with and impossible to deal with. That's one problem. 2, they're only interested in money. And if you're not rich, what are you supposed to do? Make stuff up, lie. Well, if you don't want to be about that life and having to lie, tell the truth, and you'll see exactly how quickly those girls all disappear. Because women in the West do not want to hear the truth. They can't accept the truth, and they would rather them lie to you because they're used to that.
So they got an excuse to say, ah, he lied to me and tricked me and all this shit. He told me he was balling and he wasn't. Down here, listen to this. I got a dumbass brother, and he decided that he wanted to come down. Well, no, he didn't decide shit. He was strung out on fucking heroin in Florida, and I went and got his ass, and I brought him to Columbia with me to live in my house. But you know how drug addicts are. In 3 days, they think they fucking know everything, and they could fix themselves. And he actually had the balls. I said, dude, I saved your fucking life, and I saved my own life. Fucking cunt. But drug addicts, I brought a drug addict to Colombia of all places, right? Well, here's the ironic part. Colombia produces cocaine for the United States. It doesn't produce cocaine for itself. Colombians don't even touch cocaine. They see the effect it had on their country as far as like just being because of what Escobar did. And cocaine is an export. That's where all, and the government allows it because they wanted the destruction of the family. They wanted the destruction. They wanted to put black men in jail, which is why they imported cocaine. They allowed it to pass through, and they discovered crack, and then they distributed crack, and then they taught the inner cities how to make it and distribute it. Why? Because they were planning on privatizing the prisons, changing the music frequency to start making dudes literally go ape shit for drugs and for money, and then to focus the whole vision of what life is about is just about making money. Man, you got a perfect storm right there. Dudes that go after money, rob for money. Dudes that sell drugs usually get caught. And what do you got? Private prisons that make money. You get privatized prisons, and suddenly, they're not government. You can invest in them and make money. And all the politicians in Congress and in the Senate all have stocks that support the prison system. So in the 1990s, they decided to, they tried it with us with heavy metal music, and cocaine was, readily available in the 80s and 90s. Then they figured out, oh, well, we can't really trick these white people into going to jail. We're going to try and trick the black people into going to jail. Because, see, in the past, we could be demonized for being like, they wanted to make our music demonic. And they figured if they made our music demonic, that we would follow the devil's will and murder people. So that would put us in jail. And they said, we found it much easier if we just change the music from rap music to be murderous rap music, gangster rap, and then change the frequency to cause intense feelings of hatred. And then we're going to throw in the mix is that, hey, white people did this to you, so we're going to start problems with them. So, but now all of our eyes have been opened. We've all been tricked. All of us have been fooled into believing that we're all the enemy. That's all they want us to do. They want us fat, they want us uneducated, and they want us to fight each other. But they don't realize is that black men and white men down here in Mexico, in Colombia, in Brazil are allies. Okay, allies hang out with each other. Allies help each other. We don't talk about each other. I don't even think, I have to remind myself sometimes that my friends are black. Some of them mention it, yeah, it's because I'm black. And I'm like, you just reminded me you're black. I don't think about them like that because these are my dudes. Okay. Who went to my grandmother's funeral? Who was there for my retirement ceremony? Black men, friends of mine that have no, they don't look at me as if I'm some foreign character. They look at me for exactly who I am. So let's get back to simping. Now, what I'm leaving behind by moving overseas are women that are undesirable, they're unappreciative, and we don't really want much to do with them because they don't feel the purpose for our biological and their biological needs to be in a family. The United States decided they wanted to destroy the family, and that's precisely what they did systematically, and it worked pretty good because now, with abortions being legal, they deleted more babies than were even born in New York. And so the population is plummeting. Not over here. You can actually come here, marry a girl who's never been with anybody. You can marry somebody who knows how to cook, who has a cookbook, who has a good relationship with her father, who probably still has her father in her home. So you guys could see that being a passport bro is not about running around chasing girls and spending money and stuff like that on women. Being a passport bro is a permanent change of station, permanently changing your residency and your domicile to live in an economy that is 70% cheaper to live. Logical, right? So all this talk about us chasing women, I mean, it's cute and all, and it's a good driver for people, but it's not our motivational force that keeps us down here. Because eventually you get bored of that stuff. Guys, I've been with 700 fucking women in my lifetime. Do you think I give a rat's ass about chasing girls at 50 years old? Don't. Because I've learned from that is that I was able to observe the psychological um, characteristics of 700 women. Now I've learned that by 50 years old that they're selfish, self-centered, and egotistical, and they're really only with you for their own gains. And when things go sideways for you, they usually leave. Or when things get difficult, they usually leave. Or if you got a good thing going, they fuck it up. They sabotage the prosperity of a lot of men if they're not really well equipped or really raised well. Just the way it is. So if you're a guy and you want to live that life in the United States where you have to pretend to be rich when you're really poor, where you need to spend money on a woman who doesn't actually care about you, there's a good reason to not be there. And if you're one of these dudes that only makes a certain amount of money, being overseas is the best option, especially veterans. Like I said, we're not balling down up there. You know, it's like being an old man on Social Security. You're not balling. You're eating cat food. Well, my motivation is to not eat cat food and live better down here than I would up there. Another thing, you're also going to find that the women down here are in better shape physically. And the reason for that is nobody drives. Everybody wants to say all these women are down here are poor and dusty and they're desperate for money and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of them over there in that part of Mexico and over there. And the ones that are the poorest, ironically, are right there on the border of the United States. Those are the poorest. Those are the people who sneak across the border. And the ones that you get into the country are usually the poorest. A lot of criminals, a lot of people get out of jail and they don't want to go back to jail. So they go to the United States to pull their chicanery. So when I say I'm not motivated by women, I mean, my probably initially when I came down here, because I was talking to girls online, because I wanted to, you know, have some form of comfort. What am I going to talk online to dudes? No, you're a relatively attractive guy and you're in good shape, especially a bodybuilder. And you're gonna make some traction. And that was my motivation for coming down because I knew that if I had got out of the military, I wasn't going to be able to live in the States because I'd already lived overseas since 1992. So it's not going to make a big damn difference where I go. But I know that the cost of living in the United States, because of inflation, actually, it's hyperinflation, I think. The cost of a house is like 10 times what it was when I lived there. Crazy. And I get to live in a castle, all right? A legit castle. You're allowed to buy a house down here with bad credit. You're allowed to buy a car down here that would blow your fucking mind for the cost of what a Toyota would cost in the US or less. Well, Toyotas are kind of medium. I don't know. Let's say you want to buy a Tesla and Teslas are 35,000. Guess how much Teslas are down here? Put your name in there. Put your words in the comments. So you can actually see that, okay, see what cars have I bought besides Audis and Mercedes? Oh, that's right, nothing. I've only bought Mercedes and I've only bought BMWs and I've only bought Volkswagens and Audis. And that's because the cost of living down here is so good that you can actually afford to save up a few months and then buy the whole thing cash and not have to finance a car. So let's look at the average dude in the United States. Let's say he makes $4,000 a month. His rent is $1,500 a month, plus another $500 car payment, plus another $200 for insurance. We've already gone over the budget already. We've already gone over the poor little veteran or Social Security recipient's budget. So there's no way you could live in the United States and have the same lifestyle as you would over here. See, I don't have to pretend to be rich because now I suddenly am. I jump from being in the middle class or the upper class. And I don't even need money half the time to do anything. I don't think I spent anything yesterday, like not a dime yesterday. I didn't need to. I have everything I want here. I have food. I have my dogs. I got my girl. I got my friends. I got my students. I'm good. So the very idea of having to spend anything, and I'm not being a cheap ass. I'm seriously not. I spend 125% of what I'm making a month giving it away. I do. I spend more on employees taking care of me than I do, you know, buying bullshit. How much is a housekeeper? $250 a month. A month. And they show up Monday through Saturday to clean your house and wash your clothes and iron your shit and wash your dishes and maybe cook for you. All right. Cleaner, a cook. And like I said, having a girlfriend doesn't mean that you have to have tons of money to have a girlfriend. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. You could simp your face off and meet some IG model that's been with a dozen gringos in Mexico City, in La Condesa or Roma Norte. Or you can live in a regular part of Mexico that isn't ghetto, that isn't violent or dangerous. Have a decent car, have a nice house, lock your doors at night, and you're gold. Now, like I said, it's kind of unfair to say that we're down here for women, but it's also fair to say that the women are better because they are. The women are simply just nicer, better to look at. They're all in shape. They don't own cars, so they have to walk everywhere, and they have to budget their money, and they don't chase dudes that have money unless there's some IG model, like I said, that has been with a dozen or so gringos, and they said, "Wow, you idiots throw your money around a lot and put your wallet. You leave with your wallet on top of your damn head. So what's the surprise there?" And so when you get dudes like that, those are the dudes that comment and make videos and stuff like that to say that men are down here just for the pussy. Okay, pussy's overrated. It's all the same. And even Patrice O'Neill, I know a quote for him is that you go to Brazil, the women treat you like God. And he was only dealing with prostitutes. He wasn't dealing with normal chicks like I do. So he was coming down because he was fucking, 300 and something pounds. He was 300 something pounds and he was going to Brazil and he'd have 4 or 5 women to smoke shows from Brazil come to stay with him while he was there for a week or two. And he was just having a great time. Why? Because the cost of living is literally zero for a guy that does have money. And if you don't have money, you can live high on the hog here. Isn't that ironic? And the thing about it is that this is a third world country. Well, let's explain what a third world country is. See, the Rockefellers wanted to divide the world into sections. Okay. First world, United States, Britain, all of UK, Australia, Germany, and Western Europe. Second world is Eastern Europe, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, and so on, Eastern Europe. Second world. Third world, Latin America. Fourth world, Africa, Haiti. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this, you guys? So we have all been categorized. All of us have been categorized to give this illusion of who is better and who has better status. And since the United States has always been the best in a number of things, now they are not the best. In fact, they're way down the totem pole. We've got people in Harvard Law School that don't even know the names of 3 countries. That's how pathetic it is. Why? Because the school system pushed everybody through just to get their numbers up so they could collect tax dollars and then wash that money in the tax base to put dudes in jail, the pipeline system from the schools to the factories to the prison system. So that the probation system and the court system, then you disrupt lives, then you disrupt families, and when you separate fathers from their kids and you have feminized boys that commit crimes and go to jail. So you see what I'm saying with his perpetual cycle and why the fuck I don't give a shit about women overseas is because I don't need them. They don't affect me like an American woman does. It demands that you pay for their shit. That demands that you pay all of your attention to them, only to find out that they're screwing around with some guy on Instagram. So, like I said, if this is about women, then the fucking thing that I'm talking about doesn't apply to me. And it shouldn't apply to you. We have so many beefs with women and feminist society that has been feminized and monetized for their benefit and not for us. And to give this illusion of that we're doing so great, that we're prosperous as a country. No, we're not prosperous as a country if you have no families. That if every relationship fails because of two things, romances and finances. The two things that affect men the most, romances and finances. Now, I've eliminated both parts of that equation. The two things that bother men the most, I don't have a problem with anymore. And if you're a veteran with PTSD from the war, then the best thing for you to do is get the fuck out of the country. Get your passport and find peace down here with a woman that treats you well. And if you need therapy, guess what they have at the fucking pharmacy here that's illegal in the United States? If you're hooked on drugs, they have ibogaine. If you have PTSD, they have ibogaine. If you have trauma, they have psilocybin, legal psilocybin. And these are the medicines that literally eliminate paranoia, fear, and it's over the fucking counter. But in California, we've got 10 million drug addicts on the street. The medicine made to cure those people is across the fucking border in Tijuana. But no one goes to go to Tijuana because apparently that's all prostitutes and narcos. They don't realize is that this is a big country. And I think Tijuana makes up for, like, okay, let's take Florida, for example. If you were to just take Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it's smaller than that. So the illusion and the delusion that comes from when the media portrays Mexico, they show only Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All right. That's what they show. They don't show that there's Miami down to the south. That's beautiful. No, they only show the shitty parts on TV. Why? Because they don't want you to fucking leave. They want you to be trapped in the US is to give you the illusion that you're not allowed to leave. That's why most of my black friends that come down here are in shock. They're like, wow, everybody's so nice. Because everybody on the TV shows cartel members shooting black people. That's what they do. They show the fucking shit that happens in another state. As opposed to, like I said, if Fort Lauderdale made up for the whole dynamic of the US or North America, for that matter, because that's what they portray. Now, from down here to up there, what we see on the news is people in Philadelphia bent over in half, strung out on drugs. What we see is Miami being all glitz and glamour. What we see is Las Vegas pulling the handles and all that shit. But what we don't see is that 4 streets back is some junkie, some meth head with his head down in a tractor tire. You don't see all the people sleeping outside. Now we do because the media's exposing all that stuff, especially with the migrants. So, congratulations. And like I said, I don't want to insult anybody. I'm just going to tell you guys is that this idea that passport bros come to Latin America or go overseas just to find women, it's kind of like it's like saying, "Oh, I've been to the United States. Oh yeah, where you been? Oh, I've been to Miami, and then I went to New York. Oh yeah." This is funny thing about Latinos. They always say they go to Miami or New York or Chicago, and they don't know geography any better than most Americans do. So when they say, yes, I was in Miami and my sister live in New York, and so I go to see her, and I go, oh yeah, Miami and Newark. They pretend like Miami is a state and New York is right next to it. So that's the same mentality as Americans do, is to say that all of Mexico is like this portion of Juarez. Juarez is like a fucking war zone right now. Okay. All migrants trying to plow through the eye of the needle, get into the United States to have the big jobs, the big money, because they see this thing that has been perpetrated by the American government. It says that money is the most important thing. So the best thing to do is only focus on money, the love of money, actually. And that's where you have a good life, when you have money. Well, if you don't have a good wife and you don't have children that respect you, there's really not much of a fucking life you could have. So if you can go to another country, spend 70% less money on every single thing that you normally pay a lot of money for because you guys are getting gouged and ripped off the United States. I know that because when I see these gringos come down and they're like, oh, I'm used to my house in San Francisco and it costs like 3,000 a month for a one bedroom. I'm thinking 3,000 a month. Do you have any idea what kind of house you can rent for $3,000 a month? Hell, man, I think that my biggest house, which is in a private golf community over here, where the house was about 3,000 square feet, and I had a yard that looked like a small farm. So I had all these dogs, fenced in yard, trees, fruit trees everywhere. That place cost 16,000 pesos, which at the time was 800 bucks. And that sounds cheap, right? Sounds cheap. Bro, you would spend easily $4,000 or $5,000 for this house I rented for 800 bucks. So I'm not blowing all my money on women. I'm not blowing all my money on a house I can't afford or a car I can't afford to impress people that don't fucking like me anyway. So if you guys really want to get something out of this, I'm just going to tell you that anybody that tells you that passport pros are just down here to get women and hookers and all that shit, those are tourists. Those are just sex tourists. Those aren't permanent residents. Those are just people that come down because they're hard up in the States, which I understand, and they go to that part of town where there are legal prostitutes, I guess, whorehouses, which if that's your thing, you can go do that. All right. I happen to be on this side of the Lord, and I ain't doing that shit. All right. And if that's your thing, now I'm not gonna judge you for it, but I'm just gonna tell you, man, that's not our motive for being down here. That's ridiculous. All right. And for you guys that haven't already, do me a favor, hit the like button. Trying to get some content out this month. Last month I had visitors here from the United States, from Puebla, from Germany, from Italy, from Venezuela. God damn it! And they were all a pain in the ass. But now I'm here by myself for the next 2 weeks until school starts again. And I'm just gonna tell you guys how it is, man. I'm living in a castle now. All right, plain and simple. This isn't my first house. We have a ranch in Puebla. It's 55 acres large with the house, and right now I have 7 people living in my house. We have bunk beds and all that stuff, and it's very comfortable. Right now it's freezing ass cold here. Guess you didn't know that. See, people automatically assume Mexico is just hot all the damn time, and it is. Some parts of Mexico are hot as balls, but where I live, it's fucking cold all year. So, Puebla, Querétaro, where I am now, which is the Fire Academy there for forestry, Fire Academy here for urban rescue, and then the next one that we're opening up is right there in Guanajuato. And Guanajuato is like 90 minutes from where I am right now. It is a castle, full-on castle. It's all broken, but it's mine. I'm the professor. Appreciate you guys, and I'm out.